Here it is. The iron coming from the sky, and here is the powerful and magical union of the iron of the earth with the iron of the heaven. Meteoric iron is rich in nickel and produces special clear patterns on the blade. This is the pamor. Here it is. A word that has two meanings. It is the design that appears on the blade, produced by the contrast of the iron, of the high carbon steel, which has a dark color, and of the nickel, clear and bright. But at the same time, it is even the very mixture of those elements. The pamor are many, maybe 260. According to the type of pamor, a kris can have a magical energy, good or bad power, or being difficult or demanding. Those are the dapor. Here I would like to give you just one example. The basic form of the kris is the Naga, the mythical snake that in the archipelago takes the form of the Naga dragon. And so when a kris has a straight blade, dapor lurus, is it said to represent the snake in meditation, sarpatapa. If it has the curved blade, dapor luk, it represents the snake in motion, ready to attack, sarpa lumaku. So the kris with the wavy blade contains within itself the very idea of movement. And this is a concept that I found beautiful, an immobile object, but that moves at the same time. Thus suggesting the idea of action and of life within itself.
Okay, Marco, just a question. Before we go ahead, could you please tell our viewers what Naga or Naga stake exactly stands for? What kind of symbol is that, Naga, before we go to Kris?
The Naga is this mythical creature. It could be described as a dragon, but it is an oversimplification of the concept of the Naga itself. And it shares the characteristic of the blade of the kris, and sometimes it is represented, as we see on the example in the left, it is represented on the blade itself. We can see the body of the snake, of the Naga, following the curves of the blade, and the head near the base of the blade itself.
Yes.
And this is made to give something more to the blade,
Okay.
to trace its connection with another realm.
Okay, so they, as we all know, two major types of kris. One is in a straight line and one in a wavy line. Was each one meant for a special occasion or thing, or not really?
This is a topic that has been discussed into the book, because to every look, every curve of the blade, it has a meaning. So a kris with only 3 curves is suited for a particular person. It has its own character and is chosen by the owner with those particular characteristics. A kris with 5 looks, 5 ondulation has another type of characteristic, and is chosen by the future owner, is discussed with the input, the kris maker, at the beginning of the creation, because the future owner wants to have those characteristics. So he's looking for a type of kris. Yes, so the shape of the kris has a very deep meaning with the interaction of the person that owns it.
Okay, I need to mention something, because there are also shamshirs with undulated blades, extremely sharp, very good cutters. I handled from Safavid period in Iranian collections. And as a martial artist and someone who does extensive cutting tests, they can perfectly cut. I'm talking about shamshir. Some people, you know, who don't have access to old specimens think if there is an undulated blade, it cannot cut efficiently. I can mention it, and we are going to show it on this channel. With an undulated blade, you can also cut very well. The reason I just wanted to mention that, because there is a misconception about undulated blades in contrast to a like a shamshir, which is not undulated or wavy. Just wanted to mention. And it's very interesting to see the same concept exists in Indonesia. Excuse me, Marco, go ahead, please.
I think so, because we were talking about the spirit of the Kris, but the Kris is also a weapon, a trusting weapon, and it is designed to work as efficiently as it could. So the wavy blade is believed to be something really efficient in combat, because it opens, they say, a wound in the body that needs, that is, I mean, more difficult to cure, let's say. I do not, I mean, I'm interested in this part too, because the Kris is a weapon at the same time, but it's something really different from the topic of this book. But it's something that needs to be considered.
Yes, of course. You know, because the reason, Marco, I'm mentioning it, it's very important, because, you know, a couple of, I mean, before the pandemic, there was a meeting of collectors here in Germany. So in order to make it presentable, because, you know, as a martial artist, I do cuttings, I do full contact fighting, different types of martial arts I have been doing all my life. But what is important, I always say, because I personally come from Japanese tradition, Nihonto. And in Japanese tradition and Nihonto, the sword is beautiful, but first is a deadly object. That's katana, that's wakizashi. But once many collectors, especially not only in the West, in the Iran is the same. They collect things and they do research, they collect, which is not a bad thing. And in the course of time, they forget one important factor, in my opinion, that these are weapons. These are beautiful items, but these are weapons. The reason I'm mentioning it is this way. You know, they have a very, a rock crystal pishkabs, as you said, magnified, beautiful, with a very good crucible steel blade. With such sharp blade, sturdy blade. And then they said this is an object of art, and it was never meant to be used and this and this. And I challenged the collectors. I said, listen, guys, if the guy was rich, do you think he just used something not, you know, very simple? These things are weapons. They can really easily injure, or even, excuse me to say that, they could be used, right? And this is a very important factor to take into consideration, because, and I always say, we are not only talking about paintings. They are like paintings. Now, the piece you're showing it, look, what is the difference between this and a painting? I think it's the same thing, right?
Right.
But at the same time, a painting is not a weapon, but this is a weapon. That's the reason I just wanted to mention, and it's very important to take into consideration. Yeah, especially regarding Kris, because there is lots of misconception about Kris, especially in the West. But many people say, "Oh, krises were never meant to be used. Krises are not weapons." And this is something I always say, guys, come on, right? You know, you can't talk like that. That's the reason I just mentioned it. Excuse me. Go ahead, please.
That's right. Yeah, sometimes I mean, beauty is something that make you think about. I mean, the collector never wants to use those pieces because he's scared of ruining it. But we are talking about a different period of time, a different culture, a different meaning of the acquiring of the object. The people now are buying those objects just to show it, to collect it, to study it, not to use it.
Exactly.
I think it's very different. One has to understand this to fully understand the weapon.
Yes, exactly.
Look at those handles. Those are beautiful, and I'm going to show you some more now. Here it is. So those are the wonderful handles of the Kris. Each handle has its own power, increased by the character it represents, the material it is made, and the symbols or amulets it carries. The book describes all their peculiarities, importance, and I would almost say their power. They are in wood, gold, silver, ivory, black coral, akar bahar, in horn, rhino horn, hippopotamus ivory. They have a strong magic force. Look at this, for example, this beautiful Sulawesi hilt. It is made in marine ivory. It is entirely written with verses from the Quran. The names of the four caliphs that follow one another after the death of Muhammad. And with a kris like this on the belt, it is as the bearer was going around constantly reciting a prayer. Each island uses different handle shapes, and often the shape is useful to recognize the area of origin of the kris itself. So about the symbols on the blade and the hilt, here it is. Of course, even in this case, I have to illustrate only a few. We find them on the blade and on the handles, as I said. Here we can see the lotus on the left, the symbol of creation and purity, of spiritually openness and cosmic harmony. The hair on the right were usually placed inside the handle. They have even mystical and spiritual importance throughout Indonesia.
What kind of hair is that?
Human hair.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. They were used. So the tongue of the kris was usually wrapped in a little piece of cloth and then inserted into the handle. In this case, they used human hair in place of the cloth. They are considered an emanation of the person's spiritual strength, and it is thought that the cat hair retains part of the power they preserve from black magic. I really like this part because I love to think about our traditions. Let's think about Samson. He used to have those long hairs, and his power belonged to those hairs. So we have something. Of course, it's something that there has not been like a conjunction from Indonesia to the Western world. There is something that is naturally occurring in the mind of the man. Probably it's something that we share, I guess.
Very nice. Yes.
Those are other symbols. The flame, this time on the blade, and is a symbol of illumination and transcendence. It's a symbol of Brahma and Agni, the god of fire, the god of light and knowledge. And this is a reminiscent of the Hinduism, as we were talking about a little before. This is a kris from Bali, and used to belong to a priest. This is why it has this very important feature on the blade. On the right, we can see the tumpal. It is on the base of the figure and is a triangle found in all the art of Indonesia. A very ancient and powerful decorative element that has resisted both Indian and Islamic influence.
Excuse me, Marco, this tumpal, it looks like Buddha, doesn't it?
Oh, that's right. It is actually not Buddha, but a young child. Is represented is a demoniac figure represented as a young child. But the tumpal is the throne, is the motive that adorns the throne he is sitting on. Is this motive made of those triangles intertwining one another?
Yes.
And it's at the base of the handle, and it's very, very ancient. It's very, very interesting. But at this point, I would like to ask myself, how can I know the character of the kris? If its power is suitable for me or for the owner of the kris. You can use the system of the tangible world, such as studying its pamor, its dapor, the cures with measurement systems. Or you can use a system of the invisible world. There it is one example, the dream. It is represented in the figure in the upper part of the slide. An offering is prepared. The kris is incensed and placed under the pillow. One sleeps and waits for the dream. If it does not come, the ceremony is repeated, and the person sleeps with the kris under the feet. For example, if you dream of a woman or a beautiful child or a beautiful young man, the response is positive and the kris is suitable for the owner. If you dream of a wild and ferocious animals or spirits or hostile characters, the response is negative. So this is very important. We have to consider that not every kris is suitable for a certain person. And there are those methods that are very useful to understand this. It's like you must have a kind of mental interaction with the weapon. It's considered to be something very powerful and that can damage yourself. I mean, or not just being in contrast with you. At this point, we are in a different world, in the world of deep meditation called Samadhi in Indonesia. The Kris accompanies the one who practices it as a faithful companion, and the type of Kris to use in the various levels of meditation is even recommended up to the 3rd level, because those who reach the 4th level no longer need support. Finally, in the epilogue, the author Vanna Ghiringhelli wonders how a weapon would have influenced so much a man, his body, his soul, his family, his daily life, his society. How could it even confer authority, power, protection to the person governing, and so on? Of course, one can only think that this was the case because the Kris is not only a weapon, but a mystical object. Well, what I've told you is only a very small part of what you will find in the book. All the information has been collected so that they are not forgotten. Nowadays, the Kris is no longer considered a mystical object, but a work of art from the archipelago. And so the production continues still today and has reached a very high standard, very high pinnacle. So this book is a compendium. Has been written using different sources, different other books that has been translated from Indonesia, from the language of Java. Vanna Ghiringhelli has done it to preserve those memories and to create a tool that saves a lot of time in research. So using this book, you can only have one book that condenses all those information.
Very nice. And so can you go back to the picture? Are you finished with your slides now? Can I just ask you? Can you go back one back?
Here it is.
The blade at the base in the fuller is pierced open, correct?
It's correct. And this is a very special feature because it is not something that has been done with an intention. I mean, the Kris is ritually cleaned using the substances that corrode a little bit the blade, let's say. So those opens has been created by this process that has been repeated for many years, and is something that has naturally occurred, and it's very interesting because those are thought to represent like a door to something else. Looking through those splits is like looking in the future. It's like looking into another dimension. And this is very interesting because, again, it is not something that has been filed or created or pierced by the man who made the Kris. It's something that happened during time. So it's like the willing of the Kris itself that reveals.
Very interesting. I have another question for you. Is this the Kris which are shown in this book? They're all antique Kris?
Yeah, they are. Mostly they are. It is part of the collection of Kris of Vanna Ghiringhelli. It has been published in those other books, but those are the highlights of the collection. Yeah,
and how many Kris are shown in this book?
So the pictures of the book are 94. So probably a little more, because in some pictures there are 2 Krises compared one another. So let's say 100 Kris.
Okay. Could you go back one more slide?
Here it is.
So can you influence your dreams according to Indonesian thought? Can you influence what you're going to dream with a Kris, or you cannot?
Well, you cannot. It is the contrary. So the Kris is going to influence your dream. It is not you trying to have some good dreams. It is a method of understanding the kris. It is a way for the kris to communicate to the owner. And it is a method that is usually used, let's say, in the very first night that the owner buys a kris. So he can sleep with it, and he can try to communicate in this other dimension that is the dream.
And on the left picture, on the the kris is placed on a water jug. Do you understand it correctly?
Right. This is very interesting. It is placed over a jug and over a little dish that is placed over some oil. So this is another way to permit the kris to communicate with you. So if you arrange this situation, the kris would rotate in a direction or in another according to its own will. And so you can understand from this method if the kris is reacting in a way that is correct with you. This is very, very traditional. But this Vanna Ghiringhelli, the author, she found this in a very ancient book. It was published just in Indonesia, never published in the Western world. She has made it translated. She had translated it for the use of this book. And the other one on the right, the one with the two hands that are holding the scabbard of the kris, is another method. It is usually created, let's say, by two young kids that are holding the kris. And in this is another way in which the kris can communicate with the future owner. And you can understand that if this dagger is suitable for you or less.
Marco, before we go back to this book, I have another question, because I also handled many Moro kris, which are really huge, sturdy, and very, very strong.